Well, good evening and welcome back to another edition of the Brothas-in-law. We hope you all had an enjoyable week and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join the Brothers-in-law to talk about policing in our communities and what we can do to make things better and dissect these videos and give you some pointers of how to conduct yourself when interacting with law enforcement. So welcome everybody, and I got my homeboy, Mr. Michael Bradley with me. For those of you who are new to the channel, Mike and I are both prior law enforcement. I was a state trooper in the state of Virginia for 7 years, and Mike is a retired police officer out of Pleasanton, California. And how did we come about? Well, Mike and I are childhood friends. We grew up together back in Canton, Ohio. And after high school, we both went into the military and on different coasts. But our faith in God and our passion and love for law enforcement and serving our community and our country has kind of kept us together over the years. So, welcome again, everybody, and welcome, Mike.
Oh yeah, it's good to be back. Good to have another show on here. Again, we like to pick out incidents that's happening and try to give our little opinions and critiques. Just keep in mind, me and Corey, we give you this information from a law enforcement officer's perspective. From someone who would respond to that particular call and how I would handle that call for service. Uh, and that's it. We keep race out of it. We try to keep any type of uh, leaning to the left or right out of it. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. You see what I'm saying? And this is a good one. This is a good one, Corey. This is a good one. About the pastor. I know everybody have seen it by now on the news and YouTube in Alabama about the pastor who ended up being arrested after he was contacted while he was looking over the neighbor's house while he was on vacation, watering their flowers and things of that nature. And the confrontation didn't go that well, and Corey, and I think it's pros and cons, rights and wrongs on both sides, and we're gonna get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it, and again, you're getting it from two former law enforcement perspective, and Mike and I will agree to disagree. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's the beauty of what we do and why we talk about these things, because you're always going to get an officer's uh, perspective on how they see things and how they will handle a call for service. Now, the one thing that we will always do is follow our department policy, and usually what makes a difference is we put the human part in there as well as following the letter of the law and what you should do. And in this particular case, we'll also talk about how the C.A.L.M acronym that Mike and I talk about every week in our shows, and applying the acronym C.A.L.M to these types of incidents. And again, those of you new, the acronym C.A.L.M stands for comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. No matter what type of officer you get, by doing those four things, taking those four letters and applying each and every one of them, then your incident should be very, very minimal. And what that should do, make it harder for that officer to do anything stupid to you, because it's kind of hard to violate you and you're being cooperative with them. I know it would be for me. I mean, I can get mad, but if I tell you to sit down, you sit down. I can't beat you because you sat down. You see what I'm saying? So no matter what type of officer you get, utilizing the acronym C.A.L.M should minimize any nonsense that may occur. So we got this video. It's about 9 minutes long. As usual, Mike and I will let it play unless we see something specific in it that we'll stop it. We'll break it down. We like for you all to be actively engaged, ask your questions. Mike and I will answer them. Make your comments, and let's learn from this and share this out. So before we go any further, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And if you're new, definitely hit that subscribe button for us. And our goal, we're at 149 subscribers right now. So our goal by the end of the year is to hit the 200 mark. So please, please, please help us out, y'all, and and smash that like button, that subscribe button for us to get us out there in the viral world. So without further ado, again, this occurred back on May 22nd this year in Alabama. Now, now this is a YouTube video, so y'all know the commercial's gonna pop up in there. I tried real hard to find one that didn't have that was just straight body cam and not off a news channel or whatever. But it's went so viral, it's kind of hard to find just a body camera video. So I think about halfway through a commercial will pop in. So just bear with and I'll get us through it.
Now, this seems like a small town too, right? Small town in Alabama. Looking at these streets and the houses, you know, and just to set it up real quick.
Yeah,
so
go ahead,
apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but apparently it sounds like these police officers responded to this address because one of the neighbors reported that there was someone suspicious in this person's yard and they didn't recognize them. Obviously, they didn't believe that that person had permission to be there, and that was why they called. Right or wrong, whether they should have, we'll get into that too. Right or wrong, whether they should have called the police for that or not, that we could always discuss that. But that's how these officers, they weren't just randomly rolling around and decide to come up on this property and stop this guy.
Hey, there's a black guy.
Yeah, they were actually called to the scene to this because someone reported this person as suspicious. Now, these officers don't know who this guy is. They don't know whether he's supposed to be there or not. That's their job to investigate and find out what's going on.
Yep. All right, here we go, y'all.
Howdy.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Pretty good. What you doing here, man? They saying that, is that your vehicle? It's not?
Okay, pause it for a second, Chris.
Neighbors?
I got a lot to say.
I'll be on 13.
Okay. You live here?
No, I don't live here. Okay. Now, keep in mind, folks, I'm following along with the events as they unfold, as if I'm the officer handling this call. So the first thing, now I know, officers have different lingo, have different perceptions of stuff in different parts of the country. I understand that. And you tell me your side of the story too, Corey. But up to this point, just the initial contact, I kind of have a little bit of a problem by him saying, "What you doing here, man?" You know what I'm saying? That some people might get offended by that. And as an officer, you got to be a little bit more tactful in how you could approach him. So you go on this call. This is the guy that's reported as suspicious. So the first thing I'm going to do as an officer is I'm going to say, "How you doing, sir? We got a call of you being suspicious on this property. That's why I'm here, and I'm here to investigate who you are and to establish that you are supposed to be here." That's the first thing out of my mouth, so that it establishes a dialogue that's a little bit more less confrontational with the guy I'm dealing with. Because look, this guy don't look like a burglar, although what do burglars look like? They look like a lot of things. But he's watering flowers. He's not doing anything that is necessarily a glaring criminal activity necessarily. Although him being on the property could be criminal within itself. That's why we are there to find out. What you say to that, Corey?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. All right, you're West Coast, and this guy's down south, and down south, this is how we would probably some of us down here would address. Hey, buddy, what's going on? What you got going on there? What you doing there, bud? That's a Southern thing.
Okay.
Right. So to me, that was fine. Right. I'm not. Matter of fact, Goat says that to me all the time. He's from Arkansas. So don't nobody have a harder country accent than him. So, if you're a city folk, of course, that may come off to you as,
What do you mean? What am I
disrespectful.
doing here? What are
Right.
you doing? What are you
Like,
doing here?
I mean, it's just a different way, how people greet each other. And like you said, and in our own culture, Mike, the youth, how do they usually, what's up, my Nick? What's up, my Nick? You know what I'm saying? To
I hear
me,
you.
that would be disrespectful for anybody who's not part, you know what I'm saying? So
I
I
understand the
wouldn't
point.
overreact to that just by how the introduction are. Now, again, what the rest of what you're saying, yeah, I mean, that's how I would do it too. Hey, the reason why I'm here is because of suspicious call. Got a call from a neighbor stating that, hey, nobody's supposed to be here. The homeowners are out of town. Is there a reason why you're here? And let him go on. Obviously, I can see you're watering plants. But I'm not, the introduction I'm totally fine with.
Okay. So there's a good example, folks, of two different officers, and right out the gate, how they would, or what should I say? The first thing that they say, how they engage the person that they're dealing with in this. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about this particular situation, how we engage that particular person at this moment. And I'm glad we like to do that on this show. We like to give you two different mind frames, so that if we are on the same page, then you know that, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? So go ahead.
All right.
Okay. They're saying that this vehicle is not supposed to be here and you're not supposed to be
Who's
here.
saying that?
They called about it. I don't know who called.
I'm supposed to be here. I'm Pastor Jennings. I live across the street.
You're Pastor Jennings?
Yes, I'm looking out for their house while they go.
Okay.
Water they fly.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Do you have like ID and
Oh
all?
no, man. I'm not gonna give you no ID.
Why not?
I ain't did nothing
Right
wrong.
there.
Well,
Yeah,
look,
right
listen,
there.
I
I'm
got
not
you.
saying you do nothing wrong.
Okay. And Corey, I want to hear what you got to say on this too. Okay, right out the gate, folks. I don't know why people have such a problem with properly identifying themselves to law enforcement. Um, there's one argument to say, do you legally need to identify yourself or not? We can get into that all day and argue that point all day. You see what I'm saying? In this situation, if I'm the officer, I'm called there for a particular reason. I'm called there because you are the person that they're reporting as suspicious. So I'm in the middle of an investigation of trying to determine if you are supposed to be on the property or not, and I need to figure out who I'm talking to. Okay. So in this situation, you do have to identify yourself when it's part of the investigation. Now, if I'm just walking down the street as a police officer and I just randomly come across you, you ain't doing nothing or nothing like that, and I'm just consensually contacting you and I ask you for your identification, that's different. You don't have to identify yourself in that case if you don't want to. But in a case where I'm telling you I'm here because of you, I'm here because someone called on you. Now I'm investigating something that directly involves you. That's why I'm contacting you. In that situation, you do have to identify yourself, which identifying yourself is no big deal. So what? Oh, yeah, sure, officer.
Right.
Here's my ID. Here you go. You know what that does, Corey? For me, when I identify someone, I like to do that because when I clear this call, I'm going to write some notes about what I did, who I spoke with, all that in this particular call. I can't just take your word for it and say I'm Pastor Jennings and I belong here. Okay, as an officer, if I'm investigating whether you belong here or not, does that make a lot of sense for me to just take your word for it and say, okay, you good, never mind then?
Right.
You know what I'm saying, Corey?
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, right there for me. Once you do that, then for me, that's flags start going up. All right, we're about to have a problem here, or maybe he shouldn't be here. And Stacy makes a good point. She believes that some people think, showing an ID makes them automatically guilty. No, the law enforcement officers need to know who they're talking to, right? And by identifying you, obviously, yes, we're going to run you because you have to make sure, who you're dealing with is not a wanted person, particularly if they're wanted for murder or something like that.
Sure.
So, if you didn't do anything, then let's clear the air, right? What's the first letter to the acronym CALM? C, right? Comply, right?
Comply.
Hey, no problem, officer. And you still can tell your story. Hey, I'm Pastor
Yeah.
Jennings, and I watered the flowers. And here's the thing, Mike, right? That's not unusual for him to be doing something like that because when we grew up back, had loved ones and family members that went out of town, we would go, or my parents would go over there and water their flowers and stuff and,
Sure.
and check the house out and things of that nature. So that's not uncommon, right? So, hey, let's just clear the air, show the ID, and you would never even be in this situation. This guy wouldn't even be going viral right now. You know what I mean? And we wouldn't even be doing a show on this. But it's just an ID. It's just, hey, yeah, it's me. You're telling me you're Pastor Jennings or whatever. I don't know that. And like you just said, Mike, that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't, just because you're watering flowers don't still mean you can't go and break in the house.
Right.
Right.
I mean, and not only that, you saying I'm Pastor Jennings, that doesn't prove who you are. That doesn't give me enough information to establish that I'm talking to such and such Jennings, date of birth, this and that, this, that, and the other. You see what I'm saying? Let's give you a quick scenario. Let's speculate and say, what if this person didn't belong there? Okay. And we just took his word for it and decided to leave. What if that happened? And then later on, we find out that there was a restraining order in place that this person wasn't supposed to be on the property, or the house got burglarized 10 minutes after we left, or something was stolen from the car that was in the driveway 10 minutes after we left. If they come back to the police and ask us, well, who did you speak to when you went to the property officer? And all you can say is, well, the guy told me his name was Pastor Jennings. And turns to find out his name wasn't Pastor Jennings. He just gave that to just to make you feel better.
And so there you have it, Frank. There you go. There's your answer, Frank. You're not violating anybody's right by asking them, for identification. You can sit there and tell me. And by the way, happy birthday, Frank. You can tell me.
Happy birthday, Frank.
You can tell me any name, right? I still don't know who you are. I can't. I don't know you, so I have. I mean, I was called here, right? So, like Mike just said, I need to be able to put in my report who I made contact with, and for that simple reason, it's not. You're not under any. They're conducting an investigation, but theoretically, you're not under investigation, if that makes sense. I need a name. So even if I were going to, even on a crash, right, I'm going to ask, hey, who's your, you can tell me no, but all right, I run your license plate. I need to know who I'm dealing with because the officer is going to have paperwork that they have to fill out and reports that they have to turn in. So you have to have names to go along with this.
Right. And also, like I said, it's also kind of a cover your ass kind of thing. Because later on in court, if something happens at this place where I was at as the officer, right, in court, one of the questions, well, how did you identify the person you were dealing with, officer? I properly identified him with identification. I have to testify that in court so that I'm not sitting up here looking foolish saying, I contacted this stranger. He told me his name was John Doe, and I just believed him, took his word for it, and I left. Next thing you know, he broke into the house. You see what I'm saying? At least if you give me identification, I can make a proper note that I properly identified you, dealt with you, found out that you were supposed to be there, however my investigation went, and that's the end of the story.
Right. And so, hey, mom, welcome. And my mother says, did he have permission to water the lawn? Well, that's again,
That's what we try to find out, right?
that's why you're there, to try to find out. And like I said a few minutes ago, and mom, you know this, it was common back in the day to go water your neighbor's flowers, or in our case, it was our grandparents when they went out of town on vacation back in the day, to go over and water, their plants and stuff. So it's not an out of the ordinary call per se, but hey, somebody called, right? And and the police have a duty to do, right?
Right.
And
There you go.
you're not right. You're prohibiting them from doing their duties by not giving. Now, I understand some states have a law where you don't have to um, show an ID. I think Mike, you said something a few earlier in the show about this, where you may not have to show them your ID if you're not in if a crime is not being committed. Like I think you said it, Mike. Like if you were driving and you just saw this guy and you went over and just started talking to him and asking for his ID. In that case, no, he wouldn't have to show you his ID. But you're called to a scene for a call to service for a suspicious person / suspicious vehicle, right? So
Right.
your job at this point is try to determine if a crime is being or has been committed. So in
Right.
this instance, yes, you do need to present an ID.
Right. And in this case, there's enough. And Stacy has a good question. If I'm watering my neighbor's yard because they are out of town and I get approached by the police, how can I prove that basically I have permission to be there? Well, Stacy, for that, we're going to take a totality of the circumstance. First, it starts with the ID. Second, can we get in touch with the owners of the home? Because someone called on you. Someone called and said that you were suspicious and did not believe that you were supposed to be on the property. So what I would do is try to find the homeowner's contact information. Look, does such and such here? He says he has permission to be on your property. The homeowner says, "Yeah, I do. He's good. Everything good to go." Then, if I can't get in touch with the homeowner, call a neighbor. Try to make contact with the neighbor. Hey, do you recognize this person? Apparently, this guy lived across the street. So I find it hard to believe that the neighbors don't recognize him unless they simply don't come out this house. You see what I'm saying? But okay, call a neighbor. Hey, I'm contacting this guy. He's on this property. Do you recognize him? Do you know the owners? Is he supposed to be here? We have to do our due diligence and have enough information that makes, as an officer, makes me feel comfortable that no, I verified that this guy is who he said he was, and I verified that he has permission to be on the property. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Due diligence, folks. So, don't get all hung up because an officer asks you for your ID. If anything, you're going to make that process go even smoother and quicker. You see what I'm saying?
And they're out your hair.
Right.
Right. Because at this point, you're not giving them any reason. Again, the whole acronym of CALM, comply, answer questions, listen to move on, right? The more compliant you are, the smoother things go. And no red flags are going up in my head, right? My anticipation level of suspicion of you goes down the more compliant you're being. So we want to comply, right? We want to answer their questions, and you want to listen and say, hey, next time, anything that happens, just let your neighbors know before you go, whatever instructions the officer may give them. And guess what? They move on and you keep on watering your yard. But let's keep this video going because there's still much more to dissect.
It is. One last comment. So this guy, you could tell right out the gate, he was annoyed and started to become agitated because they asked him for his ID. Now, in my opinion, they didn't do nothing unreasonable by asking him for his identification, as we just explained that to you guys, folks. Just give you an idea. No, you could very well could be here as an officer. I know that, but at least let me properly identify you so that if I get questioned later on down the line because their house got broken into later or something like that, I can feel comfortable and say, no, I spoke to Mr. Judge John Jenkins or whatever his name is, identified him, and it was enough indication there that he certainly had permission to be on the property. You see what I'm
Or
saying?
you can go back to him to be able to go back to him and say,
Right.
hey,
Oh,
did
yeah.
you see anything after you left? Anything suspicious after you left? Right. So now that gives an officer a foundation to start, that investigation. They have a point of contact. So yeah. All right, here we go.
Doc, listen,
There's a suspicious person.
Look, I used to be a police officer in Goodwater. Don't come here with that. Okay?
Look, man, don't do this to me. There's a suspicious person in the yard, and if you're not one to identify yourself,
I don't have to identify myself. I'm just not a stop and identify state. That guy know me. He came to my store that got broke in. I live right there across the street. Who called y'all?
that's what we got to figure out. But first,
he
don't live. I'm not saying nothing about.
You have no right to approach me if I ain't did nothing suspicious or nothing wrong. Told him I'm a pastor. I pastor. I don't want you, sir. You want to lock me up? Lock me up.
All right, stop right there. I'm sorry, folks, but as this is going on, I'm picturing myself as the officer dealing with this. You see what I'm saying? So at this point, he says, I have no right to contact him. Well, yes, I do. Someone called us on you, and this is why I'm contacting you and trying to identify who you are. Is that not reason? For my viewers, I'm going to ask you, as an officer, do you think that's reasonable for the officer to want to properly identify that man because they was called there, and whoever called, like I said, we can get into the reporting party later, whether it was right or wrong or smart for them to call or not. We can get in that later. Bottom line is they call. That is why the officers are there. I'm there because I was called here about you specifically. Okay. And now you're starting to be confrontational with me simply because I'm trying to identify you. I do have a right to identify you under these circumstances. Okay. And now you are only making this more complicated because now you're refusing to identify yourself. Well, what am I supposed to think now? Am I supposed to just say, okay, well, I tell you what, I'm going to take your word for it and I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Right.
Can't do that.
Can't do that.
And he made it about race.
Yes.
He made it about race.
They weren't thinking about whether he was black, white, or blue or brown. They were called there for him. Period.
Yeah, it's not like they were, like you said earlier, Mike. It's not like they were driving through the neighborhood and say, "Oh, let's go,"
let's go stop the black guy watering flowers in the yard. Right.
He made it about race. Frank says, "Well, why not make him leave the property?"
Yeah, that's a good question.
But first of all, there's no need of making him leave if he in fact has a reason to be there.
There you go. He might have a reason to be there. We just need to verify that. That's all.
Well, yeah, and that's it. Hey, you got a reason to be here. Fine. Good. Now we can put this call to bed. Right. And again, here we are with the red flag. Now, I ask you guys as our viewers this, right? Would this raise your suspicious red flags inside your head? If you were on this call, you all or the officers responding to this call, would your radars not go up now? Why is he being like this? Because I tell you, I've been on hundreds of calls, and something so simple as just showing me ID, show me your ID turns into something like I often say, what the hell just happened? Like I just want this information here and now. You're forcing me to go hands on, and now I have to take you into custody. Right. For it, and this is what prompted me to want to start the channel with Mike, because this is what I'm getting tired of. We're escalating things and they don't need to be escalating. I'm talking as far as citizens, because if we want to try to stop police brutality, now we can't stop it all. All right. We're talking about what we can control, right? We can't control the type of officer we get, but we can make it harder on them by staying calm, complying, answering questions, listening, moving on. If he didn't, the whole calm acronym for him now is gone. Right, Mike?
Sure. I'm just looking at the comments. D. Lamont makes a very good comment, and I want to touch on that. Since he made that comment, I'm gonna touch on it real quick. I 100% agree with you, D. Lamont Clark, in that the reporting, looking back after the fact, the reporting party, if you live in that area, and this guy, I don't know how long this guy lived across the street. You see what I'm saying? And you see him watering plants. You must have seen him because you called the police on him, right? So it's clear that you saw him and you saw what he was doing, right? Did you not recognize this man as your neighbor? Why is it that you, in my opinion, it goes to the extreme to call the police on something like this, that is, and without doing some kind of due diligence yourself to say, wait a minute, now, let me see, I might know this guy. You know what I'm saying? You want, oh, that's all right, that's the neighbor that lives across the street. He ain't doing that, but he must be watering the plants for them because they're out of town. That would be my normal reaction if I was a neighbor in that street. I do question that from the reporting party, Mr. Clark, because we as the police have to respond when you call. And this is specific enough to where we can't just look at this guy on this property and just walk away and assume he's supposed to be there. You see what I'm saying? We can't do that as an officer. But yes, I think a reporting party should have recognized this guy, should have recognized him as a neighbor, and should have put two and two together and did a little bit more due diligence to decide if this person was supposed to be there or not. What do you say to that, Corey?
Right. I mean, it seems as though just what we see off the body cam footage that this is a pretty small knit street neighborhood, right? Where you would assume that, yeah, you should be able to recognize your neighbors. But at the same time, we don't know how long the neighbor has been living there. Where did they just move in? You don't know. Yeah. My mom said that if this gentleman was going to break into the person's house, why would they be outside watering the yard? Well, criminals are smart. Criminals aren't stupid. They try and test the waters and see what they can get away with. Even still, in today's time, it's a call for service. The officers have the inherent duty to investigate that call for service, even if
just verify. Just
verify. I mean, it's a call. Somebody called. You have to. Now think about it. If you don't do it, right? How pissed off would the community be? You call for assistance, and well, we're not going to go answer that call, right? And then something happens, right? So the officers are obligated to respond to these calls for service, as tedious as they may be. Right, isn't it? And I will probably, like I said, we grew up like this, Mike, and it was common for your neighbors to water your yard back or your flowers back home or your garden, right? It's not out of the ordinary, right? So I mean, me going to this call, I've probably been the same way as these officers. Like, hey man, are you supposed to be here? And really, honestly, I would just be going through the motions, Mike, because it's not out of the ordinary.
No, but and Mr. Saylor does make a good point. But Mr. Saylor, as an officer, we have to find that fine line between looking at the totality of the circumstances and at the same time being able to say we verified the facts. You see what I'm saying? No, a burglar probably wouldn't be watering flowers at the place. We know that. You see what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean that this person is still supposed to be here in our minds. we might be thinking as an officer, we might be thinking of possibilities that the average citizen doesn't think about. For instance, like I said a little bit earlier, Corey, what if there was a restraining order protecting this house from this neighbor? You know how many times I've seen that where there was a restraining order in place protecting the neighbor where the neighbor wasn't supposed to be on the property of the guy next door? There could be a restraining order in place. That maybe that's why this reporting party called the police and was trying to be discreet. Maybe this reporting party knew there was restraining. You see all these possibilities that we're thinking. So that's why it's just important as an officer for us to just verify facts. Yeah, I clearly see you watering the flowers. Okay, but let me just get your identification so I can properly identify you and say that I contacted you and verified that, yeah, you in fact did have permission to be there. You see what I'm saying? And then what I'm going to do is go back to the neighbor, not the neighbor, the reporting party. I'll call the reporting party back and say, look, I understand you called for this, that, and the other. This guy happens to be living on this street. I wouldn't give him a whole bunch of personal details, but I would say, look, this guy lives on your street. Did your neighbors know that? Did your neighbors let you know that they had somebody coming over to water their plants and stuff? You know, I would put it back on a reporting party to get them to think a little bit more the next time they decide to call the police on something like this, to say, look, this could have turned out nasty, because if this guy was probably a little younger and a little bit more agitated, this could have been a physical altercation between him and the cops as far as a fight goes or anything like that. You see what I'm saying? Or because this guy was mad because he didn't want the cops, he didn't want to provide identification to the cops. You see
now
what I'm saying?
think about this. Yeah, think a great point, Mike. Because think about it, like what we always talking about, right? Escalating, right? You don't know the type of officer you're going to get. What if he got that very arrogant type officer, right? That's always out there itching to want to get into stuff. And we know there's officers out there like that, you know, and he happened to get that type of officer. I mean, we could have told him and looking at, you know, a whole different type of a situation here, right? So that, again, that's why it's important. It's important to follow the acronym of CALM, right? Comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. And if you're new to the show, Mike and I like to beat that acronym into the ground because we're trying to get it into everybody's head. So it's an everyday word now or acronym now that's second nature, like we used to, like DARE for drugs, right? We want CALM to be that huge of a home-based word, if you will, to understand when you're interacting with law enforcement, you need to stay calm, comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. Don't take
Frank
it to the next level.
We love your comments, folks.
Oh yeah, keep them coming.
Some good one. Frank makes a good comment. He says that one, but I mean one before that. He says the caller probably judged the pastor as he was looking for the garden hose. There's a quote unquote, there's a black guy walking around in someone's driveway and they are not home. That's very possible, Frank. You know what I'm saying?
Now,
very possible that the RP saw. Go ahead, Corey.
What if that neighbor only saw him when he's dressed up in his suits on Sunday going to church and didn't recognize him in regular street clothes? Now, you know, and I know I've walked in the same stores with my uniform on, then go in that same store with my uniform off, and the folks didn't even recognize me in street. So that's a possibility too, right? The only time she really sees him when she's doing something at a specific time on Sundays, and he happens to be going to church on Sundays, and she always sees him dressed a certain way and doesn't recognize him in just regular street clothes, which he's in now, and that obviously raised a red flag for her as being suspicious. Maybe she just saw the back profile of him and then get a good look at him, right? To realize, oh, that's Pastor Jenkins across the way there. We don't know. We're a
lot of possibilities on that.
A lot of possibilities.
And nonetheless, no matter, like I said, right or wrong, whether the RP, the reporting party, should have called or not, it's kind of beside the point at this juncture, because they did call the police and the police did show up, and now the police have to deal with this call for service properly. That's all.
So the answer to Frank's question. So should I send a letter to the homeowners association saying that a friend is going to water my plants while I'm on vacation? Well, I don't know what type of homeowner association you have, but our homeowner association, they're not engaged like that. But I mean, and nowadays, yeah, you might want to let your neighbors know, hey, I'm going to go out of town. You might water my yard.
There
That
you
way,
go.
if you got 4 or 5 houses in your little network that knows you all know each other, and yeah, nobody should be calling the cops on you. No, you're gonna have to let your homeowner association know.
But I
But
agree with you though. I agree. It don't hurt to just let your neighbors know, hey, I got such coming to water my plants, look after my house while I'm gone. So just so you, if you guys see some guy in my lawn, that's who it is. You know what I'm saying?
right.
It doesn't hurt to do that though. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about the HOA, but
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game right
whole
there.
different
I
ballgame.
have my personal thoughts about homeowner associations, but anyway, that's another story. All right, so we're gonna keep it moving real
All
quick,
right.
folks.
I'm gonna continue to water these flowers. I don't care who called y'all. Lock me up and see what happens. I want you to.
Hey, man, just come here and talk to us.
I'm
What?
gonna water these back flowers. Is what I'm gonna do. All right, who called y'all?
Well, if you would let us talk to you, we can figure stuff out.
You're going to catch an obstruction charge if you keep walking away.
You can do whatever you want. Do it. Do it.
We're just trying to talk to you, man. Come here.
313, 314,
You can't just walk away like that,
Okay,
folks. You
got
can't
one
just
that's not
walk
listening to
away
you.
from law enforcement like
Look,
that.
man, let me see your phone. Let me see your phone, dude. Just calm down, okay?
No.
Stop.
I like this.
Okay. We're just trying to talk to you and see.
I don't want to argue with you, okay?
All right, go ahead and do what
I
you gotta
don't
do,
want to
Doc.
arrest you either.
Do what you got to do. Go on and
Okay.
lock me up.
Look, just have a
It's
seat.
You're
already
not
a
locked
lawsuit.
up. You're
It's
just.
already a lawsuit,
Yes,
Doc.
sir. Yes, sir.
It's already a
Okay.
lawsuit.
Just have a seat, okay?
Okay, already a lawsuit.
Okay, so I don't have a
Hey, you
problem
know
with
what?
them handcuffing
You know
him
what?
at this
It's
point.
10:15.
No, in
Right.
fact,
Go ahead.
I expected them to do that.
Yeah, if you're gonna walk away from me, well, I'm gonna have to physically detain you now. You see what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to be physical with you. And remember, folks, we always say if you get handcuffed, that doesn't equal you being arrested. It just means you're being detained. Okay. And the reason I think why he was handcuffed was because he was walking away, kept walking away. You can't just do that, folks. Okay.
Right, you can't do that. Now you're really escalating things, right?
Yeah.
Could it call for a taser or something like that? No, but again, you don't know what type of officer you're going to get, right?
True.
So you walking away like that, you're going to cause that officer to go one up on you to try to get you to stay still or be cooperative or be compliant in order for the officers to do their job. I'm with you, Mike. I don't have a problem with the handcuffing at this point. You're being detained. You're not under arrest. But that's what he was. I feel like that's what he was trying to get to, anyways, for whatever reason. Like, you're a pastor. I don't. I have a problem with a pastor acting that way. And my question will be then, what example are you setting for your congregation? You're acting like this. We won't get into the biblical aspect of this, but I mean, you're supposed to be the example, right? He had an opportunity, in my humble opinion, he had the opportunity to show the world how to do this the right way, right? But instead, he showed them how not to do it. Not listening to authority and not being cooperative with them.
Yeah.
And to the point where you
And
get
at this point, it's his actions that caused what's going on up to this point. His actions caused that, not the color of his skin. They had to deal with him because they called the police on him. So they had to deal with him, period.
Right. And again, he brought all that. He brought race into it. The officers didn't bring race into it.
Yep,
And
he got
I
upset
agree with
because of that.
I agree with you, Delando. It's almost he was itching for a lawsuit, right? And my humble opinion, again, I don't see this is proper conduct of a pastor. you know, you got to be a better example in these types of situations. What say you, Mike?
No, I agree. I mean, he got upset. Number one, he got upset. I think he was upset when the police even showed up to the scene to contact him, period. I think he got upset. He started to get upset then, I think. And then he really visibly got upset when they asked him for his identification. Okay. So I can only imagine in his mind at that point, he automatically was thinking about, oh, you just doing this because I'm black. You see what I'm saying? Well,
Right.
no, we that's not it. We were called here for you because somebody thought you were suspicious and didn't belong here on the property. Okay, that's why I'm kind of ain't contacting you because you're black. I'm contacting you because you were reported as being on the property and when you weren't supposed to be. We have to investigate that. You have to understand that. You see what I'm saying? So that's when it started to go downhill. Then he started to walk away. You can do what you want. Well, when you walk away, folks, you can't walk away. You're going to get handcuffed at minimum when you walk away. Now, here, when you further start to play this video, here's where I think it might get out of hand in the sense of him being actually arrested now. Because I think personally, I think the reason why he was arrested might not have been worth the paperwork to arrest him on. But let's play the video and continue playing it. Folks, like I say, I'm gonna give you my opinion, whether it's, you know, if I think the officers could have done something better, I'm gonna tell you that. Okay. I'm not sure they should have went as far as arresting and booking him after the events that you're about to see takes place. Go ahead, Corey.
10-15. 10-15. I ain't gonna sit there and have that, dude.
What did he go 10-15? 10-15.
No,
folks,
it ain't like
he under
nothing
arrest.
now.
Right.
So what made him go 10-15?
I mean, I don't know if they called.
I think he might have been saying something. I'm not sure what he said, but he might have been running off at the mouth, and you know, at a certain point, you know what, enough is enough. Now, for time's sake, what we'll do is put the link to the rest of the video in the description down below after the completion of the show, so you can watch it at your leisure. But he ends up getting arrested for obstruction, and they take him downtown. Now, this is where it comes in, Mike, where you and I probably will differ. Should he have been arrested?
Well, for me, if I was the officer, they end up having the reporting party come to the scene. I don't know if they called the reporting party to come to the scene or if the reporting party just voluntarily decided to show up.
I think she just showed up.
Okay.
I think she realized, hey, it's my fault.
Okay, so once the reporting party came on the scene, I have no problem with them handcuffing him up to that point. But once the reporting party comes on the scene and says, oh, wait a minute, I do recognize this gentleman. He does live across the street, and it is very possible that he is just watering the plants, looking after this neighbor's house because they are on vacation. Okay, once you say that, and once that tells me that the reporting party does recognize him, then I would be satisfied that I have concluded my investigation and verified that this person is supposed to be here watering the flowers or looking after the property. I would be satisfied with that, and I would uncuff him, brush him off, try to explain my actions to him, why I did what I did. Okay, and have a discussion with him if he thinks I should have done something better or wrong or right, whatever that is, to a degree. You know, I ain't gonna stand there forever arguing with nobody, but then I would brush him off and let him go. Now, it's my understanding they arrested him something along the lines that will be equal to obstruction of justice kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because he refused to properly identify himself. I think that's a little technically. Now, I don't know the law in Alabama, how they view that law in Alabama. Here in California, for me, if I was the officer on this call, I wouldn't have arrested him for that section. I would have once I had the reporting party and explained everything, I would have uncuffed him, brushed him off. I would have had to obviously do a report. So at some point, I would have had to get identification from him. I would have gotten that from him, and that would have been the end of that. Now, if he wanted to turn around and sue for harassment or whatever, okay, fine. They sue all the time. Cops don't care about that. Okay. Yeah, cops get sued all the time. So for all kind of reasons, that's nothing new. But that's how I would have handled it. What do you say, Corey?
Now, I probably would have took him to jail. You would not be in violation of policy because he did break the law. Now, at this point, once he failed to identify himself for obstruction of failing to identify himself to law enforcement, it's a violation. You're going down to the magistrate, and you're going to get released on a probably released on a summons down there, and appear in the court. Explain to your why this happened to the judge. Or what the way you did it, Mike, would have done it would have been fine as well. I mean, if the lady came out, she was able to identify herself. Now, he still would not give all his information. He then finally gave his first and last name and date of birth, but he wouldn't give any social security number or anything like that, which is fine. I can still go back and look you up by name and birthday.
Yeah, and let me add though, I ain't gonna let you go until I have all the identification information that I need for the report. So if you continue to refuse to identify yourself, yes, Corey, I agree. In that situation, I would have taken him, would have booked him too.
Well, and that's why I said I would have, because he still failed to give full identification.
I would like to think that I would be able to communicate with him more effectively after the reporting party showed up to try to convince him this is why I need your information. Let me have it. I need to do a report. A lot of people they happy when they hear you doing a report. I need to do a report, and I need to list you in the report, and I need all of your information to do so. Now, if he would have refused to give me at that point, okay, well, yeah, you gonna get arrested because you're gonna give me that information one way or another. Now, he probably was still gonna sue. You know what I'm saying? But officers don't think of that. We shouldn't factor in our decisions as long as we are acting within policy and within the law. We don't factor in that you're gonna sue because people sue all the time.
Frank says, but failure to identify is based off of one being accused of committing a crime, right? No, you're
go ahead, Corey.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just gonna say either committing a crime or I'm investigating you because I suspect you might be committing a crime, might getting ready to commit a crime, have committed a crime, or something like that. So you do have to identify yourself as long as you are part of the investigation, obviously, that I'm doing, a criminal investigation. Yeah, you got to identify yourself. Now, if you if you just walking down the street and I say, hey, and you weren't called, no one called the police on you or nothing like that, or you clearly are just walking down the street. No, you don't have to identify yourself in that situation because there's no specific investigation.
That's right. Reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion, Frank. That's key. That's the difference between what this guy is doing. Again, the officers were called to this incident versus you walking down the street like Mike just said, and the officers just, hey, you come here, and then just start going at, hey, let me see some ID. Well, for what? I'm not in action of committing a crime. I didn't, you didn't tell me, nobody called, hey, you're looking for somebody that looks just like me or whatever. You just say, hey, you come here, and start, well, that'd be totally right. Then in that case, right there, yeah, you don't need to show no ID. In that example right there. But the bottom line for this scenario, in this incident, yeah, it would behoove him to go ahead and just show his ID in the very beginning, and he wouldn't have been arrested. Now, I read an article where he was saying, he hopes that change comes out of this, and this doesn't happen to anyone else again. And as I was reading that article, I was like, well, dude, you did this. This isn't the officers doing. You did this. You don't want anybody to happen to do any. You don't want anything like this to happen to anybody else again. Well, hey, I would say, well, just show your ID.
Yeah, identify yourself.
And
You know,
it
this is
won't
all
have to
about,
happen.
you know, exactly. Just identify yourself. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that I could have that information. And if you got a right to be there, cool. You know what I'm saying? I could put that in my report or my call notes after I clear that call. I contacted and properly identified subject A and verified he was supposed to be on the scene. So that if they call me later on because the house got burglarized, I can at least have it go back in my call notes and look to say, no, when I was there, I contacted John Smith, who identified me with a California license or whatever it was, okay, and verified he was supposed to be there. So you can start your investigation of the theft of whatever happened from the house right there, because this is the guy I spoke to while I was there. It's really a cover your ass kind of thing. In addition to being your due diligence of being able to verify who you dealt with if this becomes a problem later on down the road. That's what it's all about, folks. So get out of your mind of, I don't legally need to identify myself. What's the big deal? Who cares? Just if an officer asks me for identification, here you go. Whatever you need. I ain't doing nothing. You ain't got nothing on me. So I'm gonna give you my ID. You do what you need with it. Okay. I ain't worried about nothing. Here you go. Here you go, officer. Because I know whatever information I can give them will quickly move me on and let me go on about my day.
Now, what do you think? Do you think he might have had a bad experience with law enforcement before, and this is why he acted the way he did? But I have a hard problem with that because he said he used to be law enforcement. If you were law enforcement before, you ought to know what's going on there. So why are you acting like this?
Maybe,
right?
but look, maybe he was in the academy and didn't make the academy or something. Maybe he didn't really.
Maybe.
I mean, some people say that, and it turns out that they might have got their foot in the door, but didn't actually have a career in law enforcement. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it depends. I mean,
right.
I
was in the military and got kicked out of MEPS. No, you weren't really.
Then you wouldn't exactly. You wasn't in the military then, if that's the case. So I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it's a tough one. Do I think these officers contacted him because he was black? No, they contacted him because the reporting party called and reported him as a suspicious person on scene. We don't know whether you're supposed to be there or not. We can't just take your word for it and be cool with that. You see what I'm saying? Sure, you're supposed to be here. Okay, if that's what people lie to the cops all the time. We be stupid and not doing our job if we didn't verify the facts that verified the facts. You see what I'm saying? So that they can't come back on us and say you didn't do the right thing.
Good question. He says, "Do you always take your ID with you on a walk to a friend's house?" And says, no, he doesn't. Well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends. I may have it on me, I may not. But at least, okay. So he say this guy didn't because he was a neighbor. He just walked over to his house to go raid. He didn't have ID. Okay. Hey, I don't have my ID. And I've done this before. I don't have my ID. All right, well, let me have your name, date of birth, and social security. Hey, no problem. And I can look it up. And when we pull you up, usually, depending on how your DMV is, we can pull a picture profile up of you. Right? So that's still no excuse for him to be that way, even if he didn't have an ID on you. I can still verify who you are. And you can still, hey, well, what's your address? By the information you give me, I can then take it back and run it and be able to put it together. Okay, this is who this guy is, right? Even if he didn't have his driver's license on him. So you don't necessarily always have to. I mean, I've left the house and gone down the street, gone on a walk with my wife or whatever, and not have my wallet on me. Typically, I like having it on me because you never know when you may need that a couple of dollars in your pocket or whatever. But I always like to have it on me. So it's not an excuse to not
Right.
still
You can
identify
provide
yourself.
enough. You can provide enough information for me to be able to verify on my end. You see what I'm saying? Even if you don't physically have an ID card or driver's license or whatever it is on you, you can provide me enough information to where you should be in the system some kind of way. Like you said, Corey, Department of Motor Vehicles, if you have a driver's license or state ID card, I should be able to verify your information on my screen with what you tell me if that's the case. Now, Corey, I know we running, we going over time here. This is a good one,
We
folks.
all right. We good.
But I've also come across people who actually didn't have ID. I mean, they didn't even have a state ID in the system. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, only thing they could do is give you their name, date of birth. You know what I'm saying? If they had never been arrested before or anything like that, you may not be able to find information on them. But them being forthright with all the information that they are giving me, okay, I can put two and two together and figure out whether you might be lying to me or telling me the truth. You see what I'm saying? Where you live, you give me your address. Yeah, you say social security number, give me your social security number. You know what I'm saying? And if you start spitting these things off left and right when you don't have no ID at all, okay, odds are you telling me the truth because you give me the same information in detail, about who you are, who you say you are. So, officers gotta use their instinct sometimes because there might be somebody who actually don't have any information in the system. Rare, but it has happened.
Yeah, Go says he looked a little further and saw that the law there states that he didn't have to show ID because he was on private property. However, yes, but the difference is because I read the same thing. The difference is the police were called there. Again, it's not like he was just out there. There was the presumption of a crime being committed. So that was the difference. If they hadn't had that call, then yeah, he didn't have to show any ID.
That makes sense.
So,
makes sense.
But great question. I love Go's gonna dig, and so is Frank. So we went a little bit over, but man, this was a great show tonight. We thank you all for joining us tonight. Please go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button for us if you're new. Hit that notification bell, and we'll get you'll get notified every Thursday when Mike and I get ready to go live. Please share this out. Again, like I said at the top of the show, Mike and I want to hit that 200 mark for the end of the year of subscribers, so we can help us out with the YouTube algorithm to get us out there to go viral, to spread our message of staying calm, comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. Let this be a part of your household name. Stay calm when interacting with law enforcement. So again, we thank you guys. We love you all, and we will see y'all next week. Mike, any last words?
Now, just identify yourselves, folks. Just avoid a whole bunch of headache and just identify yourself. Forget about all that. I don't have to show you. Forget all of that. Just identify. You upstanding citizens. You ain't got nothing to hide. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Here you go. Here's my
like
ID,
my grandmama always used to say, do the right thing.
right. I got ID for a purpose. Okay. Here you go. No problem.
Right.
You showing your ID is not admitting guilt. You ain't, that don't mean you gonna get arrested because you identified yourself. Okay. Just ID yourself, folks.
Right. Y'all have a blessed weekend and stay safe. Enjoy your Monday off. So we'll see y'all next Thursday, same time, same sandbox. Y'all be blessed. Right.
I see you, Tone. Good. Thanks for the comment. And yeah, they do show the RP. So if you guys go and try to find that video later on and watch it further, we just got pressed for time, but keep watching that RP does show up to the scene. You can see it.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you next week and invite a person to join the show next week. Peace.
Peace out.